Okay. And so Ronaldo Randall, the pre-health advisor, was not able to make it today, but he has a video. This is 10 minutes long that we're going to watch. And then after that, I'm going to go ahead and give Ben the floor. So I'll go ahead and share my screen.
Hello, hello, hello. How are you doing? My name is Ronaldo Randall. I'm the Director of Advising for the College of Sciences here at Old Dominion University, but I am also the Pre-Health Advisor and the co-chair of the Pre-Health Advisory Committee. So I want to talk to you a little bit about pre-health at ODU. I'm going to talk to you all from the newly updated pre-health page. This is the hub where you'll find most information concerning how ODU assists our students in getting into pre-health programs postgraduate. So what you'll see, and it's easy to find this page. You go to any odu.edu webpage. You can simply search pre-health, and you'll find that this page will come up. So it talks a little bit about getting started. We really want to encourage students to attend our orientations live. We'll probably start recording them. But there's something about the live interaction for this particular orientation that becomes really helpful. So we have 2 in the fall, 1 in the spring at current. Before or after this experience, and a lot of times the way you find out about the pre-health orientation is going to the down here, the interested in pre-health. You complete basically a little opt-in survey, which will basically opt you into receiving emails from pre-health at odu.edu. And so then you'll start receiving information based on what pre-health program you're interested in. And so things that pertain to the broader audience of pre-health students will get the orientation. So everybody attends the orientation. From that point, the communications will be very niche based on what you plan on doing. So also that orientation, we have kind of some cameo appearances from all of our pre-health inspired organizations, and they're able to talk about what they do, and we're able to find out what some of the opportunities that some of the leadership and the pre-health organizations are doing here at ODU, and just what some of our upperclassmen students are doing. And so that's why the live one is really good. So the second thing you'll see here is it kind of goes through, there's 2 tabs. One's pre-health process, the other's the committee letter process, and we'll talk about that kind of at the end because that happens towards the end, and there's a process to get to that process. And so right up front, you kind of see there's a breakdown of the 4 years, what you pretty much need to be doing every year going through this process. If you're coming into ODU as a first-year student, if you're coming in as a transfer or second degree, it may be a little different, and we work with you individually. And we do work with everybody individually as well, but there is kind of a cookie cutter process that you need to follow, just basically. So you can take a look at that and what that looks like so that students are not overwhelmed by the undertaking that is to prepare for a professional program like dentistry, medical school, pharmacy school, PA, optometry school, vet school. All right, and down here you also find at the bottom some helpful links from the Association of American Medical Colleges, AAMC. And so medical school application timeline just kind of reinforces the 4-year plan above. Post-bac program, so that just speaks to students that may need some more formal education, either through grades, either through test prep, either through career changers. It talks a little bit about post-baccalaureate programs. Gap year, so the last 2 are talking to students and prospective medical students, DO students, about what it looks like to do a gap year, the philosophy behind a gap year, and why it may be a good idea. And then you have resources for pre-health students. And so we've revamped some of this, added some new stuff, and I'll kind of just go through this and give a high level breakdown. So we have a GPA calculator for the sciences. And so whenever you go into a pre-health program, they're going to want to see your cumulative GPA, probably your last 30 credit hours, but they're also going to want to see your math science GPA. All right, and so this is an Excel sheet that will calculate your math science GPA. So clinical volunteer opportunities. So we've listed a couple that our students have participated in the past, and some relationships that we've built, and so they're just listed here. You simply go to their website, see what they're offering, when they're offering it. to gain some clinical experience. Down here at the bottom of this section, you see the pre-health mentorship program. So the pre-health mentorship program is something we've recently added to kind of our portfolio. And so simply what this is, if you're underclassmen and you want to get some kind of advice and just some assistance for somebody just ahead of you in this journey, and they're plugged into all the pre-health stuff, you can tap into the pre-health mentorship program. All you have to do is email that email address, and then they'll get you started in that process. Then we have a few pipeline programs we expect for this to grow. And so one of the pipeline programs that a lot of our students have gotten into and had a great experience with is the Student Academic Enrichment Program. This is with Virginia Commonwealth University, so you can go look at that, but really great program for upperclassmen and newly graduated students. Then we have personal statements. And so personal statements are interesting. Once you've been in college for a while, you learn to write long, and a personal statement is like 5,400 characters, so it's a page. And so it's a unique way of retrofitting everything that you've done and being concise and impactful with being able to write a personal statement like this. So just some tools. There's a YouTube video from my office, some tools below on how to craft a great personal statement. Then we have mock interview tools. And so this will help anybody get ready for any type of interview, but there's some specific things that you need to think about when you're interviewing for professional health careers. And there's certain type of interviews that can be a little different too. Like this mini mock interview is, in my those are very different. And so that's a way for our students to kind of get up to snuff to what they can expect for interviews for these type of schools. Then we have pre-op clubs and organizations, right? And so we list them. This will take you directly to the club on the Monarch Link site. Then we have the opportunity for you to join one of our, and so this is joining programs and then the pre-health track. So we have two programs that are special unique for students that are coming straight to ODU from high school. And so they're the EVMS's Joint Program in Medicine, BSMD, and we have one with VCOM, which is osteopathic school, which is the same type of program. You have to come directly from high school, and there's some other requirements that you can view by clicking on that, but it's an opportunity to get accepted to medical school really as a sophomore. And then we have a pre-op track, so it talks a little bit about the prerequisites and outlines what you need for the MCAT versus the different medical schools. And then beneath that, it gives all the watchdog organizations. That's organizations that controls, medicine, veterinarian, PA, pharmacy school. So all the latest and greatest of information will be located on those sites. And then officially joining the pre-health advisory committee. So this is new. And so to start out, you'll get all the information once you opt into the pre-health listserv. You'll start getting emails. But to really start working in depth with the pre-health advisory committee and me, you'll need to meet some of these requirements. And so for freshmen, we need you to be qualified to take OCHEM and then have some type of experience, right? We want to know that you've toe dipped a little bit and really understand what you're getting yourself into. And then you want to attend orientation. We talked about that. And then we recommend a 3.0 GPA for obvious reasons. If you're coming to ODU and you're not a freshman, then your transfer, you're a little further along in the game. You're also a little older. And so we just want you to be eligible for general chemistry too. And so this is how you opt into that. Once you opt into that, then we start talking a lot about the committee letter process, right? And it's simple steps, right? Opting into pre-health advisory, which we just spoke about. Once you complete the letter request application, then after you do that, there's a couple of attachments. So that's probably the most involved piece in this. And then step 3 is you would select the interview, so we can do a mock interview for you. And then after the mock interview, which you'll take in step 4, then you'll send the letter request writer details to me and my personal email address. And then shortly thereafter, between 2-3 weeks, depending on the volume of what's happening that year, you'll receive a letter. So that's kind of what our process looks like. And so if you have questions, comments, or concerns, this is the best place to go to. But also, you can email me at rrandall@odu.edu. That's rrandall@odu.edu. So I hope this was helpful. Your advisors will know how to get in contact with me if you need any additional information. But until next time, you all have a great rest of the year.
All right, Ben, take it away.
All right. Hi, everyone. So, like Ariana said before, my name's Ben, and I'm an MS1 at Campbell University School for Osteopathic Medicine. And she emailed me, and Jacob Tusigno emailed me what looks to be a list of pretty comprehensive questions. And I was talking to him in lab today with a couple of the other students I go to school with, and they were like, wow, this is a they pretty much have it down as, entering and, mid-year undergrad students. So the first question that y'all had for me was, is there a certain major that I should major in for medical school? And the answer to that is no. Actually, what most medical schools look for is someone that has a passion. So let's say I'm going to pick on Sharose just so because I've known him for a while, but say Sharose has a passion for art history, right? He can be an art history major and still go to med school if he meets all those prerequisites, which Ronaldo just talked about. So you can major in arts, you can major in hard sciences like I did. I have my Bachelor of Science in Biology, which seems weird to kind of say now. Um, you can major in whatever you want to as long as you meet those prerequisites. And actually, sometimes they'll favor your admission to med school because they'll look at you and say, wow, that person has a passion in that, and they're able to explore areas outside of biomedicine. So if I major in nursing, would that help me get into medical school? Yes and no, but mostly yes. So the no portion is I don't know really what the requirements are for nursing, but I'm assuming y'all don't have to take biochemistry or anything like that. So, and that is now one of the prerequisite courses for most, if not all, med schools. So you'll have to take extra courses on top of your already having nursing major load. But it will also help you because a lot of medical schools are looking for people with patient contact hours. And if you have more as to what questions as to what constitutes patient contact hours, I'd love to answer those at the end. But nursing majors, you'll definitely have those, and you'll definitely have those patient interactions. What is your advice on gap years, post-bac programs, and importance of each? That is a great question. So gap years, I'll say from my perspective, I didn't take a gap year. So I graduated last May and I started med school in August. So I didn't take a gap year. And for me, that works fine because I know if I went out of school and tried to, get back into the routine of school, I would struggle real hard and I'd probably end up having to remediate classes my first block, which thankfully I didn't. And sorry, I'm just going to open the questions again. But yeah, so I'd have to get back into the swing of things. But if you find yourself really burnt out by junior year, fall of senior year, maybe take a gap year, explore what you want to. It doesn't have to be, your gap years don't have to be, oh, I'm working at a research facility, or oh, I'm working at like a biomedical as a medical assistant or scribe. It can be, hey, I surfed every day and explored passions that I really loved. Post-bac programs, if you're going to do a post-bac program, make it meaningful is my advice, because I feel like the EVMS Medical Masters, which is a 1-year program where they basically help you with your foundational sciences for med school. Foundational sciences are basically biochemistry, cell bioanatomy, micro, immuno. Not to sound too harsh, but they don't mean a lot. Medical schools don't really look on them any more favorably. I mean, sure, EVMS will, but if you do not want to go to EVMS, I wouldn't suggest doing a post-bac program. Now, if you're interested in still getting education while taking some time off from the rigorous med school course, get a master's in like public health, master's in another area, because then they'll be able to see that now you have a graduate degree, you still have your undergraduate degree, and maybe it's something you pursued that you are more passionate in. What is the difference between MD and DO? This is my favorite question. So MD is commonly called the allopathic. and DO is Doctor of Osteopathic. So the FIGS ad that was in that portrayed women and DOs in a negative light has been caused uproar on my campus because DOs, we take all the same classes MDs do, and EVMS, here's the secret. We had a harder first block than EVMS did. EVMS had one class of anatomy. My first block was cell bio, micro, biochemistry, immunology, and anatomy. And on top of that, while they may have clinical labs, we also have clinical labs, and we have 200 additional hours of osteopathic manipulation medicine, or OMM or OMT training. So OMM is basically manipulating the body and muscles in a certain way that it reduces your pain and makes your range of motion better and makes your skeletal muscular system a little bit healthier. And honestly, it's going to help me as a clinician improve because my partner Brittany and I, like, we basically touch each other's bodies like literally every week, and you get really it pushes you out of your comfort zone because we're doing this week where we covered abdominal clinical exams, and then last week we covered heart, and you're literally shirtless with this person in an exam room, and so you get really comfortable with your classmates, and so it helps not only your comfort level, but when you're placed in those clinical situations immediately, you're going to have a better basis for what you're learning later on. What is the medical school timeline if I want to go straight out of college? So this is something I'm well familiar with. You're going to want to take your MCAT in your junior year, either late spring, early summer. So I took mine in May, right after finals. So I studied for finals, studied for MCAT, and went right on. Looking back, and what I asked my other lab mates today in anatomy lab, we all kind of wish that we kind of took it more seriously because we all were coming straight out of undergrad, surprisingly, but we kind of wish that we put it off a little bit because we all happened to take it right after finals, and we didn't get that chance to kind of break down study. So my advice, take it early summer. You're going to get your scores back within a month. And during that month, you should be working on the other portions of your exam. So you're going to have 2 or 1, depending on what you want to apply to, DO or MD. MD program is called AMCAS. DO program is called AA COMAS. And you're going to be working on those portions, kind of filling in, your experiences, your letters of rec, requesting those, and the professors submit them individually, or your bosses, or whoever fills out your applicate or letters of recommendation. You're going to want to work on those pieces while you're waiting, because then you're going to have to log into AAMC and then submit it to AAA COMAS and then submit it to AMCAS. So you want to be done with your primary application during the midsummer, and then secondaries are going to come out. And I have a question about secondaries down here, so we'll get to those a little bit later. Generally, you want to take a week or 2 to complete your secondary per secondary, and it does cost money. So take that into consideration, because secondaries are either free, which is the nice part, or they can range. I think the most expensive one I had was $150. And that is intense. And I actually did not fill that out because it was too much money. How do I choose what medical schools to apply to? So just like undergrad university, right? You want to do the environment. So for me, being in Norfolk during the later half of my educational career, Norfolk had a ton of things to do, right? You can go to restaurants down on Monarch Village, you can go downtown, you can go to VB. There's a lot you can do within 30 minutes of traveling. And for me, I know if I went to EVMS, I probably would not be getting as much work done as I should. And that is one way. So I chose the location. So I'm literally in rural North Carolina. I think we have like a Waffle House, a country bar, which the food's not that great, so I really don't go out to eat. We have a few breweries 30 minutes away. and we have a sports bar / wing place, and that is all I have around me. And then I have like the campus Chick-fil-A, which is kind of like ODUs, but there is nothing around me. And so I can either go hang out with friends who are also going to be studying, or I can study on my own. And that's the only way I can get work done. So location was a big factor, atmosphere. So Campbell, and you're going to hear me plug Campbell a lot. Campbell is a family. They'll take care of you. And so I found out that I had an eye disorder, and I'm fine, but I found it out block 1 of medical school, and I had to go get evaluations for the Navy and all of this. So they were literally like, don't worry about the quiz this week. You need to go do that. You can take it on Monday. And they'll take care of you. And I've had, you know, other students have had problems with each other, and they've resolved it in a way that, you know, doesn't harm long-lasting relationships. So atmosphere of the school is really important as well. And the last kind of non-subjective piece to this is board scores. So you're going to want to look at like what the student body is, so their demographics, and where are you getting placed into residency. If you want to go into sports med, you probably don't want to go to a school that has 1 student for sports med a year, right? You want to go somewhere else. If you want to go into orthopedics, you want to choose a school with strong ties to orthopedic residencies. So, and strong board scores, because that's what orthopedic surgeons and orthopedists need, is strong board scores. So that's the more objective piece of medical school I'm looking for. How long do I wait for medical schools to hear back? So depends. Medical schools can sometimes take 2 months. Campbell, so the medical school I currently attend, took 2 weeks. And I had a problem with my application, and the week I submitted it, they were like, you need to go back and fix this. And they directed me through how to fix it. I called the admissions office, and they were like, yep, you just log in, do this, do this. And then I got my interview the week after that. So they can take pretty quick, or they can take pretty long. Now, if you're waiting, say, 3 months, it's more likely that you did not get a secondary or interview, because they're going to submit those relatively quick after. How did you gain clinical volunteer experience? So I'm assuming most of y'all are freshmen or sophomores. Ariana, is that true? Yeah, freshmen, sophomores. I know Sharose is about to graduate, but there's an awesome program at ODU called Honors 226. You don't need to be part of the Honors College for it, but it basically places you in a area of medical research with EVMS. So I worked with an EVMS physician. I did that for 3 years. I eventually got hired on at that office with as a medical assistant, which gave me patient contact hours. And that was, I got to go to a medical conference. I got to go to residency dinners. So as a sophomore, I was eating filet mignon at least once a month, which was amazing. Loved it. And yeah, so that's one way I did it. The other way is I got lucky. If your family knows anyone, you should ask them if they can shadow. Your primary care physician, ask if you can shadow. And that's a good way to get shadowing opportunity. Now, usually that doesn't count for patient contact hours, but it will help you, say, open up that relationship. So maybe if you're not able to get patient contacts hours through there, you can ask the person you're shadowing, like, hey, do you know anywhere where I can get patient contact hours? And they will be able to help you out. And research. So research, I did what is now the defunct program of Chem 138. So I had chemistry research, and I got a publication out of that. And that really helped me. But I also asked professors. So an anatomy professor that is no longer with the university was there, and I asked her, and she got me into bioelectric research at ODU, where I got to work with breast cancer cells, and that was super amazing as well. So if you're interested in research and you know that your professor does research, no harm in asking, because what's the worst they're going to say? No? and then you move on. How did I study for the MCAT? My tips and advice, best time to take the MCAT. We already kind of talked about that. What resources did you find helpful? Awesome. So AAMC is going to plug their own exams, which are $35 a piece. Do not do that until the very end before you're ready to take, because you're going to end up spending like $100 when you don't need to. You need to buy 2 of them or 1 of them. And that is how you're going to assess how you're ready. Another secret about the MCAT is graded, or excuse me, the MCAT is curved. You will get 6 to 7 points higher on the actual MCAT than any practice test you will take. And no one tells you this. So your highest score maybe going in is a 502, and you're really nervous, and you get your score back and you get, a 508 or 510, and it's curved. It's curved. Don't worry about it. But best time, like I said, if you're planning to come straight out, early spring, late summer. If you're planning to take a gap year, you can take it whenever. They're good for, I think, like 5 years still. But yeah, and resources. Google, so you're going to have a diagnostic test, and that's the first thing you want to do before even studying to assess your baseline knowledge. You can just Google free MCAT test, and they will pop up. You just got to sign up for the emails, make a separate email for spam accounts, send that to them. Jack Weston Cars has an excellent car section, which a lot of students struggle with, and I got a 92 percentile on cars, and that is honestly what helped me is Jack Weston Cars. He'll have a free passage for the day. You log on and you practice that, recording your time, because you want to get every passage down to around 5 to 7 minutes. And then I still actually have my Kaplan books. So the Kaplan book set, it'll give you free online test prep, the free books to read, and that was honestly super beneficial for me. Can you tell us more about the extracurricular portion of the medical school application? Yeah, so for both AA Comus and AAMC, it's going to be fairly simple. They're going to have you input the dates you did the extracurricular. It's going to be hobbies, clubs, shadowing, volunteerism, jobs that you did. Always think of a way to spend spin the non-biomedical jobs. So I worked in construction during undergrad too. You gotta kind of figure it like, oh, I learned how to talk to people in a certain way. So you got to kind of figure out how to spin those jobs, but you're going to input them all, and then you're going to designate 3 as your most valuable experiences, and you're going to have to write a couple paragraph essay about why those were so meaningful to you. So for me, it was medical assisting, and I said the lasting relationships I made with the patient and all of that good stuff. And you basically write it in paragraph form. And other than that, it's pretty self-explanatory. Yes, the medical school application takes a long time to fill out. It took me, that month. And the personal statement is honestly the longest thing that took me to fill out, because you're going to do your first write, and then you're going to go, oh man, I think I killed it. And then you're going to go back, and people are going to say, well, no, not really. You need to change that. And they're going to go, oh, okay. And then they're going to be like, now you got to change this. And so it takes a few revisions. It's going to take a while to fill out. But the other piece of advice I can give you for the personal statement is don't have too many people read it. Have someone that's going through the process read it, have a pre-health advisor read it, and maybe have a professor read it. Do not have your family read it unless, they've gone through the medical school tract, because my parents did not, and they read it and they had a bunch of changes, and I was told they were all wrong. So great. What are some key components of the medical school application? So extracurriculars, personal statement, letters of rec. Those are the 3 big ones. And then the secondaries. And those pretty much should be all your major worries. What helped you write your personal statement? Advice you would give to those who are in the process of a personal statement? Excellent. So like I said, have a few people read it. Don't open it up to everyone. Um, and do not say I. Medical schools hate the word I. They want, because if you think about it, your doctors, your nurses, your PAs, the techs that you're working with, they're part of a team. So when you talk or describe patient experiences or experiences that you had as a peer mentor or anything else, they want to hear the word we. We solve that problem, because in medicine, that's truly what you're going to do. You're going to problem solve as a team. And that's my biggest piece of advice, because I said I a lot because that's how I wrote every other personal statement ever in my life, but not true for med school. I did take the Casper test. And so, if so, any advice regarding it? Don't stress out. You can't study for the Casper test. Um, it's an empathy or sympathy. And if you're not that empathetic or you're not that sympathetic, don't go to a school that requires it. Because one of the long lasting quotes is empathy and sympathy can be taught, and they will teach you that in med school. So we have clinical skills lab, and a part of that is the humanistic. They want to hear and feel that empathy and sympathy when they are watching you in the room alone with the standardized patient. And, if you don't seem that empathetic or sympathetic, they will teach you. They will, have you remediate that class, which basically means you go to this week-long period to at least get a C in the class. And they'll literally sit down with you and be like, this is what you need to do to fix it. What are secondary, supplemental, and are they harder than primaries? Yes, they are. So they are very hard. So for example, the one I got for VCU was a patient scenario, and you had to explain how you would handle it. Others are, when I say they're so hard, they're just a lot harder than the primaries. The primaries are kind of almost not thoughtless, but you don't have to, constantly kind of regulate what you say. Whereas the secondaries are trying to like pick it out, because that's the secondary portion is where you decide if you're getting an interview or not, according to my admissions office. And so the three primaries, or excuse me, the three secondaries I had for Campbell are, and you have to answer them in paragraph form, like, why do you care about rural medicine? Why do you care? Why do you want to be a DO specifically? And that is the biggest question if you're thinking about the DO programs. Mm-hmm. Think about why DOs, and help and just shadow a DO. Go to the office, ask the DO question, because that's the only way you're going to know if DO is for you. But yeah, they're harder than primaries, and they're basically just paragraph essays. They can be one. I think the most I had was 5, but they're usually 1 or 2 per school. How do I begin to ask for letters of recommendation? Should I have certain documents when I ask for them? How would I store these? So yes, keep a running tally or a CV, circumvalley, with you. And that's just basically going to be your GPA, the classes you've taken that you want to highlight. So if you're passionate about biomedicine, like take pathophysiology or advanced physiology or neuroanatomy, cadaver lab, and you want to keep a list of all those, all the jobs you've done, the volunteer hours, the shadowing experience. You want to have that all prepared so when you hand it to them, they can write you a letter of recommendation. Maybe a loose copy of your transcript, like don't buy a transcript, because you're going to have to buy those for AAMC and ACOMAS. But just go on to, what was that portion called of the MyODU? Leo Online, is that still a thing? Yeah, so go into Leo, they'll be able to give you your online transcript, take a screenshot of it and bring that with you. And my advice for getting those letters of rec, do not ask a professor that you haven't really bonded or worked with. I mean, if you're hurting for one, you can ask anyone, but because they're weird about it. The pre-health committee should also be one. I did not get a pre-health committee letter, so if you want to talk about the reasons why, we can do that at the end. But just pick someone that you bonded with. So for me, I volunteered with Dr. Lisa Byram at ODU. Worked with her for 2 to 3 years, and I ended up asking her for one because she was best able to represent me as a person. Does that kind of make sense? Awesome. What advice would you give to pre-meds who are freshmen or even upper classes? One bad semester is not going to hurt you. So what I mean by that is I had a 3.0 in my freshman semester, my first semester at ODU, right? Got there 3.0, and people told me I should probably change my major. People told me I should probably, stop looking for med school or not pursue it as hard. I graduated with a 3.8, and I got honors from the magna cum laude from the university. So it does not matter. One bad semester, especially your first semester in college, will not hurt you at all in your chances of applying to medical school. Now, if you start stacking up 3.0 semesters, maybe that's when you should be a little bit more worried. But one is not going to hurt you. My buddy got below a 3.0 and is well on his way to going to med school currently. So it doesn't matter, and it's easy to play off. And what I mean by that is when they ask you, why does that, why do you have such a low GPA there? And you can tell them I was adjusting, and they will be okay with that. Because they'll see that upward trend, and that's one of the things they'll look for. Because even if you're not setting the world on fire with GPA and you graduate with the midline GPA from med school, which is 3.5, 3.6 now, they're going to see that you improved. And it's as simple as that. All right, so I looked at the questions, and most of them seem to be about myself and my experience, what I'm doing currently. So if you have any questions about the general application, please unmute yourself and, talk about that with me. No questions?
So for the secondary parts of the application, are those required?
So that's a good question. Most schools will. So the way it works, right, is you'll submit your primary, right, which is comparable to the Common App, which you use to get into undergrad, right? If they want you, they will send you a secondary. Now, to the best of my knowledge, you will not get an interview if you do not complete your secondary. Because that's how they better understand you as a person. Because every med school, no matter if it's EVMS, QSOM, here or there, they will have a set of values, and they want to make sure that you kind of match the one kind of person they want to bring to the school, and that's what they're trying to accomplish with the secondary. Some schools don't require a secondary, and if so, I think Lake Erie College of Osteopathic Medicine, for me, they didn't require, or their secondary was just demographic information about myself. I can't remember what school, but one of them didn't require a secondary. But most schools will. All right. Thanks, Andrew. Any other questions? Awesome. All righty. How is social life and school life balanced in medical school? Not to sound sarcastic, but it's pretty heavily balanced towards school life. And what I mean by that is you pretty much are doing schoolwork for 8 hours a day, and then I give myself an hour a day I love playing Warzone. I don't know, but I love video games, and so I give myself an hour a day of just I'm not thinking about the cardiac system. I'm going to play Warzone. So that's exactly, Warzone is great. Thank you, Tierra. But yeah, so I give myself an hour a day to do that. I'll go see friends throughout the day, and the rule of thumb, at least for my school, is 1 day a week. And what I mean by that is we have Fridays, right? And Fridays are what we use to assess our knowledge for the week. So they'll give us a quiz that's graded, and that happens every week, 1 through 8. And after that, we have a clinical case meeting, which is basically a bunch of us get together. Like, they'll have a moderator, and they'll have a bunch of student doctors like myself, and we'll talk about ongoing an ongoing case. And so one of them was when we had micro, we had stomach pain and diarrhea and vomiting. And then you got to go through like, oh, is it this bacteria? No, because this one doesn't have, this one causes fever and they don't have a fever. And then you try to match it up. And so they're basically trying to get us to work on differential diagnosis. After that, that's when we'll go to like the Waffle House or something, wherever we want to go to, relax, or I'll play a game of Warzone, or, we'll go to the country restaurant and bar or something like that. Let's say, do you still use them in, let's say techniques that I use in college, do you still use them in medical school? Clustering for me in college was pretty much the only way I studied. Now, not so much. I listen to the lectures, I take notes on the lectures. Anki, which is it's Quizlet on steroids, is a pretty big thing in med school. That's pretty much how I study now. Clustering and drawing things out if I don't really understand it. So, for example, we had acute inflammation lecture. So I had to draw out like the rolling of leukocytes against the endothelial cells is mediated by selectins, right? And so I'll cluster out that, and I'll cluster the proteins that are involved in it. But Anki for blunt memorization, like anatomy, reading the lectures and taking notes for every class, and drawing things out if I really need to understand it, which is going to be me this weekend with cardio. Cardio is terrible. What do you want to specialize in and why? I want to be a pediatric orthopedist or sports medicine doctor. I was an athlete growing up all through high school, and I got really badly injured. I broke my L3, L4 vertebrae and the transverse processes. And the sports medicine doctors and the DOs that I worked with were excellent. And that's something I'm very passionate about. And kids are just the best patient population, in my opinion. Like, kids are just so fun to work with. They just want to get healthier. They don't kind of, in my experience, I worked with a lot of adult patients, and the kids just don't have whatever's inhibiting the adults. They know that they're hurt, they know that they're sick, and they just want to get better. And plus, I love dad jokes, and kids always laugh at my dad jokes. So it makes me feel a little bit better. Were there times that you doubted yourself as a pre-med student in college or a first-year medical student? How do you keep motivated? Of course, I doubt myself constantly. And it's because that, it's a different experience. That first semester, and when I had a lot of people telling me that maybe I should change in undergrad, yeah, I doubted myself then. And you just got to remind yourself why you keep going. Also, being passionate about what you're studying about. So for me, like, I have hobbies that I love. I love surfing, love gaming. I love cooking and food, and big foodie. But I'm really passionate about my studies in biomedicine. So for me, my grades started to go up when I started taking pathophysiology and physiology and classes that I could see connected to my future in a clinical way. That's when I started really enjoying undergrad. But like taking gen bio and chemistry, that was pretty challenging for me. Not the material, but just staying motivated to do it. So remind yourself why you keep going. So for me, we're talking on my school laptop now, but on my personal laptop, I have a little sticker that's from my medical school that just says, Campbell University School of Osteopathic Medicine. And I keep that there so that even when I'm, going through lectures or whatever, I know that I kind of have a purpose. Because if you feel like you don't have a purpose, then you're going to lose motivation. So I'm here to tell y'all that y'all are going to make excellent clinicians in whatever path that you go, and that you have a purpose. What would be an average day in my life? All right, so this is kind of hard to explain because days differ. But so I'm just going to tell you my whole week. Monday we have class from like 8 to 12, and that's 4-hour lectures. So they divide them by like subjects. So, today, for example, you have 4 lectures every day, by the way. So for today, I had pathology lecture, I had an anatomy lecture, I had a pharmacology lecture, and I had a physiology lecture. And I had that today. But on Mondays, so back to Mondays, after your 4 lectures, you have an OMM. So go osteopaths. You have an OMM kind of SDL, which is going to tell you like what you're doing this week for lab, and you've got to watch that before lab to make sure that you're not going to go mess up someone's bones and muscles in lab. So you watch that, and then you're done for the day. So you're going to study or review lectures or take notes or whatever you want to do. Tuesday, same 4 lectures, except now you have OMM lab. So for us, lab is in person for OMM and clinical skills. You'll go in and you'll go mess around with your partner, do different techniques to try to alleviate the somatic dysfunction or cause of pain. And then Wednesday, you have the same 4 lectures. I gotta go plug in my PC, but I'm gonna go get my charger. But Wednesday, you have the same 4 lectures, and you have clinical skills lab, so you'll practice exams, like physical exams on each other. Thursday, you have 4 lectures, and then you have an anatomy lab. And then Friday, you have a quiz, either your professional classes, so it's teaching you foundations of medical practice, or professional core competencies. So it's kind of the school's way of assuring residency programs that, like, if he messes up, that's on him. We taught him that all we could about being a professional and being a good clinician. And then exams, you have either once every 2 weeks or every 3 weeks. And yeah, you have no homework though, which is amazing. But yeah, so no worksheets you have to fill out, no essays. Just study and make sure you're ready for the exam or quizzes on every Friday and exams. And the lab portions, you have practicals and a written exam, which is multiple choice. And yeah, anatomy lab practicals you have a couple times through the semester, or blocks. So yeah, so for the first couple times, you're gonna be. So do you get any breaks between semesters? So in med school, for most med schools, you won't have semesters, you'll have blocks. So your year is divided up into 4 blocks. So the first block is going to be where you learn like your foundational sciences. Second block, you start getting more clinical, and then every block after that, you start getting into systems and more clinical applications, right? So yeah, you get a week off every 8 weeks of school. And it's awesome. It honestly keeps me from losing my mind. And because that week you can travel, like me and my friends went up to Williamsburg, and all that good stuff. So it's just an awesome time to have that week off. Thanksgiving, you still get breaks, so don't worry, you still get holiday breaks and all that. But yeah, so I would highly suggest, if you like having that week off, look for somewhere with a block schedule, because I love it. And that is all I had from Ariana's list. Now I'm going to go to Jacob's. I'm debating on going to med school or not, just going to grad school for cytotech. I can't be the one who tells you which way to go. I'm very happy with the decision that I made to go to medical school. But just because you're not getting that MD or DO, please don't feel as though you're not going to be part of the medical team as much, because DOs could not do, or excuse me, doctors and MDs and DOs and nurse practitioners and PAs, we couldn't do our jobs if everyone else didn't do theirs. And the secret is that the doctor may, or the nurse practitioner, the PA, might just be the figurehead, like the pathology text, the cyto text, the nuclear medicine text, the radio text. They all do as much work in the diagnosis as the doctor. And when you're a resident and when you're just, you're a baby physician, the nurses, the techs, they're all going to be there to kind of hold your hand and make sure you don't mess up in any big ways. So either way that you go, cytotech or med school, you're going to do an amazing job. And you're going to be just as much part of that medical team as anyone else. I am interested in going to medical school, preferably EVMS, and I'm wondering if and when pre-med do I have specific research and volunteer hours? Do I have to do some specific research and volunteer hours? Yes, you do. You don't have an hour amount, but you have to get above 100 hours of research and volunteer is probably safe. Thank you, Lexi. Good luck in class. But yeah, you need to get at least over 100 hours, in my opinion, and that's to make sure that they know that you're invested. I'm interested in med school. I was wondering, when do I take the MCAT? We already kind of talked about it. It's all right. Thanks, Stephanie. But yeah, no, it's spring, early summer if you're planning to go straight out. And if you're taking a gap year, whenever you feel comfortable with the information. I am interested in PA school after I graduate from nursing. I'm not sure if it's something I want to go into right away or wait a year or two. So I guess my question would be just a recommendation on when to apply and what looks best for when applying. Burnout is my biggest piece of advice. So if you feel like you're going to burn out from going straight from undergrad to a professional school, wait. Do something you enjoy, whether it be working as a nurse, whether because you're going to have your BSN and RN, or going surfing and working at a wing joint. If that's what you want to do, pursue it. And that way it could keep you from getting burnt out. But if you're more like me and you're not sure you can get back into school and get back into the motions of studying, then I would go straight from undergrad. I'm interested in knowing more about the different opportunities at the moment. I do not have any specific questions. If you'd like to know more about it as a whole. Go to Campbell, Andrew. Go to Campbell. Anyways, I'm interested in knowing more. Whoever wrote this question, if you're in here, after I get through all the questions, please ask more. So I'm hoping I gave you some more information about med school and now you can tailor your questions. I do not think I have to go to med school for my major kinesiology. No, you do not have to go to med school. Med school is not for someone who wants to go just for the clout. And what I mean by that is if you just want the MD or DO at the end of your name, don't go to med school. It's not worth it. There's so much more things you can do for clout other than be a doctor. But if med school and being a doctor is the only thing that you can envision doing with your life, do it. It's so rewarding. I'm interested in doing athletic training in grad school. I'm interested in learning about preparation and applying for stuff like that. I'm going to be honest, I don't know a whole lot about athletic training. I've worked with some when I was doing sports medicine, shadowing, and interning up in Maine. But I'm guessing you should probably, my advice for any pre-professional program is to shadow someone who's currently in the field because they know what's going on. And I probably would not be in med school if I didn't do shadowing. And the shadowing that you do will create long-lasting, not friendships, but mentorships. So like when I got into med school, you have a whole list of clinical skills, things that you have to buy. And mine was like a stethoscope. I had to buy like ophthalmoscope and an otoscope, and just asked a few simple questions to one of the women that I shadowed, and she ended up buying uh, my stethoscope for whatever reason, and she's just been giving me advice on how to get more involved in school, and she's been amazing. So it like shadow no matter what pre-professional school you want to go into, because you'll get a mentor in that field and you'll be able to see if you really do like this work. Potentially interested in medical school. I don't have any questions because I recently talked to an admissions counselor for med school and he explained the process well. Awesome. I'm glad you're interested in medical school. Yes, I'm interested in medical school for a pediatrician. Awesome. So I actually just paid my dues for the AAP. So the AAP is the American Academy of Pediatrics, and I'm in the pediatrics club as of this afternoon. So what that means is when you join the AAP in a pediatrics club, you get a whole bunch of resources on doing research with pediatric patients, doing like volunteer opportunities with pediatric patients, maybe paid opportunities with pediatric patients, and like different resources such as books and events and the conferences every year. So joining clubs and, for me, at least that's pediatric and sports medicine clubs, but joining clubs is really important. I love pediatrics too. If you want, we can talk about it after the meeting. And yes, I have questions about dental school and how to get there. Like I said, I know you have the DAT. I know you probably have to shadow, volunteer, and research. Other than that, it seems like Ronaldo put up a pretty good list about the other pre-professional programs. I don't have that much knowledge about dental school applications because it's not something I really wanted to pursue with my life. But I know Sharoz did at one point, so if you have any contact with him, maybe he can answer your questions. All right, so that is all the pre-prepared questions that I have. So does anyone have any other questions or comments or concerns about the process?
When taking the MCAT, is it possible to take it earlier in your junior year?
Yes. So you can take it. You don't have any requirements except the $300 that it costs, and it's expensive. The reason I say take it junior year is that's when you'll be able to have most of the classes done. So for the MCAT, you have chemistry, physics, biochemistry, cell bio, gen bio, car, psych, and soc. I took phys, anatomy, phys meaning physics, anatomy, gen bio, cell bio, gen chem, and cars you do on your own. But I took most of the classes that were required of me before I took the MCAT. And so that's why I suggested taking it junior year. Now, if you're really gung-ho about taking it early and you think you can teach yourself biochemistry and all these other classes, go ahead. I taught myself biochemistry for the MCAT and I kind of turned out just fine. But the reason I say junior year is you'll be able to get a majority of the classes that you need under your belt. Awesome question. Any other questions?
I actually have a question. So earlier you were talking about when you first got to Campbell, you had to go get like testing for your eyes and things like that. And you mentioned something about the Navy. I just was wondering if you were doing like the whole where the Navy pays for you to go to school and then in return you'll give them a couple years of service after you graduate with your doctor and stuff.
Yeah, so I'm actually in that program. I got admitted in June. I'm just waiting for a few more because I had the problems with my eyes. I just got to wait for a piece of paperwork, and once I get that, I should be all set to go unless they find I'm ineligible, which I don't think so. I can see that.
Yes, so I just had more see how that works. I'd be interested in kind of doing something like that, but I just want to see how they approach you. Like, would you recommend? Why you decided to do that? And things like that.
So the way they approached me is I was taking my MCAT, and after you're done, they basically ask you, do you want to submit your score? You say, if you think you did it decently enough to get into med school, yes. Or if you think you trashed the MCAT, say no. Because if you say no, no one will ever see that score. But if you say yes, it will always be on your permanent record for the MCAT. And then they're going to ask you, do you care if we share your email with other opportunities about med school? And I just clicked yes, and I got an email from the Navy. Kind of wanted to do it before the MCAT and thought more about it. And I emailed them back, said, yeah, I'm interested in the Navy. And so they have another application process. So you're going to have, you're going to have 2 interviews with an officer that was a medical officer in the Navy. You're going to have, you're going to have a personal statement, a lot different than the medical school personal statement. You're just going to say why Navy Med, and why medicine. And you can use I, and you can phrase it however you like. After that, they're going to ask for your transcripts. They're going to ask you're going to have to get like their whole physical process, your security clearance process, all of that. It's just a lot of paperwork. It's not that hard. So more tedious than hard. But yeah. And then after that, you submit it. You wait for the review board to review your case, and then you'll either be waitlisted, accepted, or denied. And if you're denied, that doesn't mean that you are denied from ever. You just maybe need to fix something in your application. You can reapply. But I was lucky enough to get accepted my first time. I had my 2 interviews, and that's about it. Any other questions? All right, I don't think I have the chat pulled up too. I don't think I see any questions. But yeah, I really enjoyed talking to you. I remember being, 4 or 5 years ago, being in y'all's shoes. It's a scary time. You really don't know what to expect, and ODU has gotten so much better with their pre-health professionals, uh, meaning like medicine, dentistry, PA, NP. They've gotten so much better about it. It's insane. So I'm so glad I could come here and talk to y'all today. I'm gonna jot down my email in the chat real quick. So if I know how kind of scary it can be to chat or talk in person, especially in front of all your peers. So if you think of any other questions, please email me them there. Just forewarning you, maybe really slow at responding to emails this week just because of this exam, and cardiology is not going to be fun for me. But yeah, love talking to y'all. Thanks for all the great questions. It seems like y'all put in so much time, and I'd promised Campbell MedEd that we're one of the only schools in the country with a camel as the mascot. Honestly, great community around here. I don't think I would like medical school much anywhere else. The other thing is if anyone has questions, since this is really not the most talked about thing in med school questions, but if you have any questions about social life or even dating per se, because that's kind of hard too in med school. If anyone has any questions about that, I'm happy to answer those now. But yeah, my girlfriend is also a first-year medical student, and she went to William and Mary in Virginia. So she wanted me to tell y'all good luck on all your applications, good luck on undergrad, and yeah. And trust me, social life, as you kind of think of it now, like going out to eat, it still happens. You'll make time for it, because if you don't, you'll go insane. But you're going to be doing schoolwork every day except maybe Friday or Saturday. But you'll still have that social aspect, and because you and your friends are going through it together, it just brings you that much closer. But yeah. Any other questions? Gabriella says no. Andrew says no.
Yeah, I think we're all set. Thank you for coming and
Yeah, no
spending
problem.
an hour at least, a break from studying. But we wish you luck. We know it's hard. Real
Yeah,
hard.
thank you so much.
Good luck on your cardiology
Thanks.
block.
Yeah, that's actually about to load up a lecture right now, so should be fun.